So if you go on Teams, so on Teams every day I post what we're doing. By the way, it just happened to work out. The video from yesterday stopped right at the clown. Thank you, Crinkles. But so I have an essay grading key, and I posted it for you. But I use little abbreviations like W means week, Y means the purpose of the main point of your essay, EX means explanation, GD, or check mark means good, EX means explanation. I think I already said that. Various things. And if you click that, I post this every day. So there's the review list for the test that's going to be on Friday and things like that. This will be on there. Yes.
What's R?
R. Oh, R is on there too. It's coming. Go ahead and make this interesting. R, relate to your thesis. Relate. Analyze, when it says analyze, that means the real definition of analyzing is relating it back to your thesis statement. And we'll talk about LQ, and that's for DBQs and things like that, so don't worry about here. Repetition. Q, a lot of people have Q. That's question. Answer the question. And we topic sentence, and that big thing about topic sentences must relate to your thesis. Awkward, blueprint, remember that's the blueprint. Concise. Don't worry about document, that's because of DBQ. So put that down there. OI is another thing, that's a college board term, outside information. Means things that you bring to the essay. And sometimes I'll write down OI on it. Just simply as. I'm not doing computer programming, I'm just simply writing outside information. So that's posted for you, so you can print this on your own, but those are the basic elements of it. It is on Teams. And so when I do this, and I put down week, I put down WY, that means you have a weak purpose of your essay. That's probably one of the most common mistakes on the thesis statement. You might have the basic topic of it, you might even have a good blueprint, but the why is weak. So you have nothing tying it together, nothing to relate your topic sentences to. You need a strong why, which is a weird thing way to put it, but a purpose or common denominator, however you want to look at it, something that ties your blueprint together. So I'll post this for a couple days, but you can print this on your own, and I'll put it up again. But I didn't see a need to give you a full sheet of paper for this one. I figured you can do it on your own. And so let's quick talk about one thing though. You look at your essays. For a lot of people, I had to put down context or BK for background. Sometimes I do BK without thinking about it. But context. Look at that front sheet. That is the guidelines for what the College Board does for an essay. And you're just getting a brief little help on your essay, I know. And context is number 2, contextualization. And you need it right away. It's got to be in that opening. You have to be able to see it and find it easy. And you think, well, I got context. I put a lot of information off the essay. I know. A lot of you didn't. I found a good contextualization in the beginning and the end. But the beginning, hit it because it not only ties everything together, it shows the person who's reading it, I know what I'm talking about. Also, think about, let's say you do the AP exam. Which, by the way, you know that's half price. You didn't hear that? I also posted it online on Teams. It's $50 instead of $100. So we can take that extra $50 and put it into the class fund. What do you think? Class fund. Who's with me on that?
Yes.
Yeah, which would be just one giant Kit Kat. I think $50 from each of you, we could buy I would say one ton Kit Kat. But back to the important stuff. You're writing an essay for an AP exam, and you got somebody in a room creating 1,000 essays. I want you to contemplate that for a second.
the smartest, best reader in the world, who is getting very tired of reading the same essay over and over again. Make it easy for them. Have the context right away so they can find it and know, oh, context, 1 point, check. If they have to search and they're getting tired, they'll miss. I miss it when I start getting tired grading them. In fact, that's why, thinking about grading essays, why I don't like, you can't use on the AP exam anything but blue or black pen or pencil. Anybody, oh, reds, you can see it. Hey, you grade 15 essays in a row, all of a sudden red ink on white paper, and it looks just like blurry lines. Has anyone had the opportunity to grade 100 essays yet? No, I got a job for you. I don't mind doing it, except for that's why I do that. But that's why I ask for those things. Oh, second semester, don't forget everything's about being pen. You excited? Pen even on the classes help. It does help your hand. I'm not kidding when I say that. You just got to get used to not making mistakes. Making fewer mistakes. I make a lot of mistakes, I know. Okay, so let's get back to context. So with that opening paragraph, I do not waste time with flowery language. And the Constitution led to the greatest document in the history of humankind. No! First off, that's a really hard thing to prove. But secondly, don't waste your time on that. No flowery language. And that's hard to do, that sounds good. Also, don't start doing things that should be in your body paragraphs. In that opening paragraph for this kind of essay, don't write things about, let's say you're talking about the Federalists and the Republican parties. And then start telling about the point of view of the Federalists and the Republican parties when you're going to have to say it again in your body paragraph. Everyone catch what I'm saying? I have people start telling me about the Federalists and the Republicans and then go back and say it again. No. Give me background. What happened? If it's about the Constitution, write about just won the Revolutionary War, the weak form of government called the Articles of Confederacy, horrific financial situation and economic ruin culminating in what rebellion? Yeah. Shays' Rebellion. Shays' Rebellion, which led to the Constitution. Boom. But compromises were needed, and get to your thesis. If you write about the political parties, talk about the United States just created a new form of government called the Constitution that tried to redress many of the problems with the Articles of the Confederation. But the country did not yet have a sound economic background, and there were many different views about what direction the country should go. Boom, get to your thesis. Background material. And then the person grading it was going, well, that's context, that's background. This person knows what they're talking about. I like them. They're smart. Show off. Show off what you know. I know in other classes they might say in the opening paragraph, you have something to catch them, grab them, great opening statement. That's so hard to do. Get to the facts. Because you have 40 minutes to write the essay? How fast does 40 minutes go once you start writing? Right? So get to it. And so that's why I put context or background. Write that information down. Any questions on that? So think about that. Now let's look at the thesis statement. X, the main position, or the main theme, whatever about the prompt. The Y, that position, or the thing that ties it together. The blueprint, BP, the A, B, and C. So let's look at the first question. I will read to you the first question. But this should sound familiar to all of you. Are you ready for this reading? Are you excited? It's dramatic. My arm does not hurt anymore. It was only about 12 hours. I'm going to get another booster. Analyze the compromises that were necessary to write the Constitution. Right? What is your X? What do you have to give for the theme? Analyze the compromises that led to the U.S. Constitution. What do you have to get? What must you mention in the opening paragraph? I don't care what thesis. Say it again. And yeah, there are compromises that led to the Constitution. But
Now we need the why. What were the compromises about? The most basic element that the compromises were all about. What was the big fight? Between whom? Between what? Someone said what? Not the Constitution. There were no Federalists or Republicans there. Yes. Yeah. Differences between the states. Because also we might have select states and free states. So what do we have to get? What's for the why? Differences between the states or trying to unify the states. It's the states. The different states have different points of view. Because they were still thinking like little countries. So, what's your opening of your thesis and the most basic element? There are many compromises necessary to pass the Constitution due to due to differences between the states. That's your why. So each of the compromises you must relate back to how the different states done. That's it. We need 3 paragraphs. What's the first one? The A, huh? The Great Compromise. What's B? 3/5 compromise. What's C? The slave trade, and there could be one more. The Bill of Rights was also a pretty good compromise. Madison had to go back, even though I don't think quite as good, but Madison needed that to get it passed. Electoral college could be used because a big state and small state, that's just harder to prove. I would stick with the big 3. I gave you 3. Great, 3/5, slave trade. And then when you write it, it's not enough just to explain what's in the Great Compromise. I had a lot of people give me a good summary of, and the 3/5 compromise had a bicameral legislature with the House and the Senate. That's great. It is great. But why do they have to have a bicameral legislature with the House and the Senate? Because big states wanted the Virginia plan, which was representation by population. What was the small state plan? Do you remember the state? Not wrong, you're close. New Jersey plan. I know we get the smaller states up there. The New Jersey plan, and they wanted equal by states. You have to explain why they needed a compromise. And then say. Some people gave me great explanations of the 3/5 compromise and never explained about the disagreement between northern states wanted slaves to be counted towards taxation, southern states wanted it counted towards representation. Need that reason why, and then quick explanation. So let's look at the other essay. Are you ready for the exciting reading? Sit back and get comfortable. By the way, we're going to do the Satanic Panic as part of our conspiracy theories for Halloween. Isn't that exciting? Special topics? You don't want to hear it? It's actually, I vividly remember that. In the 1790s, how did differing visions for the economic future of the United States lead to the development of the first political parties? In the 1790s, what else do we need for the... Say it again. Okay, we need something about the creation of the political parties. Say it again. What visions for the future, and specifically in what area? Economics. So when it said about different visions of economics lead to the parties. Now, the why is actually really easy. What's the why? What were the parties? Republicans and? Because then we could say every point we use for the A, B, and C relate back to the different view that the Federalists have and the Republicans have. That's it. X. Different visions for the future, different economic visions for the future as seen by the creation of the new political parties, which would be Federalists, which you could also add around the ideas of what person, and then the Republicans, what 2 people? Madison and Jefferson. And then what's your A? What's the first? Now these got, by the way, some people put down, and I understand why you did this, but it's fraught with danger. You like why I said that? Some people put down, as seen by the different economic views for your A of the Republicans, and the different economic views for the Federalists for your B. The problem with organizing it like that is if, let's say you put down the economic views of the Republicans. Give examples.
And then you put down the economic views for the Federalists in the second paragraph of your body. Won't you repeat yourself? You're going to repeat yourself. You just basically say the Federalists believe this, in the next paragraph, the Republicans believe this. Pick issues, places, or events, things that happen. What was the big proposal by Hamilton? That would be the first real big gulf that would say, ooh, we have different points of view. Yeah, someone said the Assumption Bill. The Assumption Bill, which would pay off what? All the debts, which, by the way, would be paid for with a whiskey tax. The Assumption Bill. What's the next one I gave, which also would be some constitutional issues? What's the what? The whiskey tax was part of the Assumption Bill. The Bank of the United States. What's the last one? What's that? Okay, the capital, well, that would be part of the Assumption Bill to get it passed. Assumption Bill is a big one. What? Tariffs. Remember those three? I went right in order. I said Assumption Bill, and then I went to Bank of the United States, and then I went through tariff. By the way, these are all three of those things you should have known. And if you did not know those, it's like, oh, I remember that. And these are big deals. There's one more you could use. What was the other big issue that divided the Anglo-French War? And Hamilton admired which one of the two? Because they had begun the what? No, Britain. I know we got two. Britain had begun what? The Industrial Revolution. And that fit in with his economic vision. Remember, we got to relate it back to the different economic views. That's a thesis statement. Organized. I know we did it in class. It took longer than it actually would, but a lot of them had very good ones. Some people might add two, and then if you have the whiskey tax is separate from the Assumption Bill, they're kind of the same thing. And if you didn't have the Assumption Bill, that was the big issue. That's why I started with that. It's the most important reason why they divided. That was the first shock, like, oh, we really don't agree. If some people put down the election of 1796, no. And the reason why is because by 1796, there were already parties. Or simply by 1800. There have been parties for a long time by then. I know why you did it. I understand that. And that's why I'm giving you the opportunity to redo that paragraph. Does that make sense? Yeah, it happens. First one, you're trying to get stopped. Look at it, it all look the same, and I'm trying to get it correct. But that's why we did that. That's why I did that. That's why I'm giving this opportunity. But I had a lot of very good ones, or ones that were so close. A few people had to write finish. You started talking about something and you just quickly went to the next paragraph. We all do that. Especially, all right, I'm done. My hand's tired. I'm going to move on. I got 5 minutes left. Try to finish. I know, clock is running. So let me give you some examples. So this is the time to revisit the Satanic Panic. So here are some examples of outlines. And I thought these were very good. So I took them from various classes. I thought very well done. And don't get bought. We could all say, hey, wait a minute, there's elements with the thesis. No, what I'm looking for here is that you were quick and organized. Because I know when I see your outline, that if it looks like it's kind of quick, organized, I know I got a chance. You're probably going to want to be a pretty good essay. Oh, I know we'll find things, and maybe some things will be inaccurate. But, see, quick brainstorm list, organized thesis, 3 quick paragraphs, good. By the way, that's a check mark. It's just not a very good check mark. Here's another one. They put on blueprint, I put on BS list. But good thesis statement, your thesis statement's there, brainstorm list, 3 good paragraphs, all very well organized. I know when I read that, boy, they know where they're going. And one thing, this beautiful mountain scene shows you only one thing. I'm tired of the beautiful mountain scene. Where are we at here? You're not going to use everything from the brainstorm list in your essay. You write 15 things down, you're not going to use half of them. But wouldn't those be good things if you're thinking about things to put for your context? Things you don't use in your essay, you got a list right there for your context. You need facts for your context. Let's get to one more. Good brainstorm list. Basis statement. Organized, read, prepared. Once again, yeah, we can pick out things here, but I'm looking for they're prepared. And then nice, very well done outline. And I like the abbreviations. Hopefully when you abbreviate, you know what you mean. If you got 3 or 4 minutes to prepare for an essay, do a quick organization, practice this. We will do more. So by April, when we get closer to the test, I'm just going to throw you a question. And I want you to be able to do this in about 3 minutes. Use abbreviation. You don't need it. Now, let me give you one. We'll go to here. Pretty good context. Organization, had names, facts. I can go back and say there are a few other things we can add, but for a first time doing context, I thought this was good. Okay, this does not say food. That's my terrible G. And I put down EX here, more explanation here. That's she should have put down Federalists and Republicans. Because it says political parties in the essay, add that, got it. Now, saying that, we're going to do another essay here pretty soon called the DBQ, which will be similar. We just got to use documents. In a way, that really helps you. In a way, it's more work. There's always a balancing act. That's the way life is. But we do the same format. And you notice, those short IDs are basically the main elements of it. That's why I like those. Oh, and I've had 2 students come back who had me, previous students here, they're in college now. They just came back to say hi. I was, it's cool when they come back. And they come back. By the way, it was raining, it was colder than heck, and now the sun is out. By the way, if you're in Britain, what do you call it if it rains and the sun is out? It's a monkey's wedding. I don't know why, but I, for some reason, love that. A monkey's wedding. All right, so that's your vocab for today. Monkey's wedding. Okay, so I just thought of something. I forgot what I was going to say. Oh, so they're talking about okay, they always have some story about something I did in class, and they're what we're talking. But then they said, both of them said the thing that we did in here that helped them the most. Well, besides learning how to notes and all that, but the short IDs. They both said, and I've heard this so many times. Oh, the short IDs helped me so much in college. Because they had to write a quick paragraph. You have to do that for virtually everything. You don't do that skill. It's such a big deal. Expand it, and you got to pull it. All right. If I put down see me, come see me, everybody else, if you do the paragraph that you either repeated or something like that, and then I've got an opening paragraph. If you're between 80 or 70 and 85, I'll give you a chance to get some more points. Because I want good responses on that. If you're at 85, I'll let you do a paragraph. But high B is a good grade, so. But I want good essays, especially if you missed a paragraph. Yes. I'll do an opening paragraph and then one body paragraph. Pick the body paragraph, the one that you have the most trouble. Opening, get context. And grades have to be done by Monday. Well, technically Friday. But if I get it by Monday, so as soon as you can, so I can get this in. If not, you'll get the old grade. At least for the quarter. So get it in as quick as possible. But I had a lot of very good ones. They're right there. I mean, so close, just a few things. And so I was pleased with them. I was very pleased. And almost everybody, I thought just a couple things differently and they would have a great answer. But they didn't quite get what they were hoping. It's just a couple things different. But a lot of A's and B's. This is good. Does that mean I should grade harder the next time? Yes. Because you'll get better the next time, right? Every time you'll get better. Okay, I notice most of you are looking at, oh, great and easier. I know, take your notes out. Oh, tasks. What do you have to bring on Friday? Laptop? And what else can you have? Notes, but you only have 25 minutes. And so make sure you organize it in some way. I did put the review list up there again on Teams, so if you need to copy it, I'll put it again tonight, today, and tomorrow. Also, one more thing, what do you need? Bride. Bride, we try. And we'll have the cauldron back there. You just put it in there because I want to be fair and impartial. I'll just take them. But I don't want to know who gave them. Does that seem fair to you? Totally fair. Oh no, we're going to get a 10,000 pound Kit Kat with the extra money we're saving. Oh my goodness. You know what? We should actually give a fly to Japan. Because they have like 100 different flavors of Kit Kats in Japan. Kit Kats are like the national candy of Japan. What have you done to buy his bouquet? You okay? So, what about your?
I get on the station in Japan on the military base, and some of them were disgusting. So they were like pretty bad.
There's some really weird ones.
Yeah.
Like bacon flavor. No, I don't know about that. Bacon.
That one was just bad. I did not like that.
They had a pomegranate one.
Yeah, that was one of them too. It was not.
Yeah. Okay, they're inconsistent, but the good ones were really good. Okay, so what are we finishing in? Talking about what? Oh. So Makinsville, which by the way, Makinsville #1, horrible bill. Nobody liked it, right? Okay, it just didn't pass, but for some reason it's come down in history as Makinsville #2. So that ended, what was Jefferson's plan to do something about the commercial war? Trade with nobody and turned out to be a disaster. Yeah, the Embargo Act. And Makinsville #2, what is the term I gave you for somebody who is one of the sides who are fighting? People who are battling? What is that term I gave you from yesterday? A belligerent. Whichever belligerent respected neutrality rights. And which one said they would respect neutrality rights? Were they telling the truth? No. Oh, what was the name for the Federalist attack on the Embargo Act? Which involved a big snapping turtle. Oh, grab me. Did you like the old grab me? And what was it called? The imprisoning of sailors? Yeah. So we got to hear we get here. So the U.S. basically embargoed Britain after the Cadora Letter. So the United States is kind of at war. But that wasn't the only thing going on. While this is going on, there's another conflict that the U.S. would also pick a side in this commercial war. And that's those Northwest Indian War. So just to review, we've already talked about Fallen Timbers and Treaty of Greenville. Those two big treaties, right? Or the battle and the big treaty here. But after that, there's going to be a whole series of unequal treaties that the United States would just find somebody who was like a Shawnee or Ottawa or somebody like that, or Miami, some male. Get them, normally the tradition was get them drunk. They put an X on a piece of paper, and that would be a treaty for the United States to get more land. And so the U.S. started settling into this land already, and then we get a treaty after the fact. And then say, well, we found somebody. And these treaties right here would be the land, various land that would be scooped up by treaties. And so the tribes that lived here, already decimated by disease, still trying to farm, would be kind of pushed into this area. And these tribes here, and you'll notice, They're near the Great Lakes. Ooh, what's this place? And who has Canada? Might Britain have a vested interest in this affair too? But we're coming to one of the most important battles in American history. November 7th, 1811. The Battle of Tippecanoe. Maybe the most decisive battle in, at least on the battles in the frontier. The only ones I compare would be battles like Gettysburg, Antietam, or Saratoga. And Tecumseh, who was a Shawnee, he actually was a young man at the Battle of Fallen Timbers. Tecumseh right here. And he realized we have to quit bickering and form a confederacy. He was very pragmatic. Once again, pragmatic is kind of a double-edged sword here. But he's saying we can't fight each other. You're pragmatic, it could be things that make you look like a hypocrite. Now it looks like a beautiful day outside. Is the wind really blowing? Ooh. The howler monkey's not going to like that. Well, yeah, they're already deal with that. They're close to the ground. He's pragmatic in this way. We might have all kinds of disagreements, but this is what we got to get. We can no longer be dependent upon the United States, or for that matter, Britain. We can't be dependent upon them for trade. We have to start making our own stuff again. Going back to the old ways, because if we're dependent, we can never really break away, and eventually we'll be swallowed up. We talked about the fur trade taking them. We already talked about, remember King Philip's War? So this has been going on for a very long time. The big thing he said was we have to quit trading for whiskey and rum. These drugs are destroying us and making us vulnerable. So it's very pragmatic. He started getting more and more people to join, but don't forget, we're talking about a man here. Behind the scenes, women made the big decisions, but men came together and talked. It was a very complex way they divided labor. And Tecumseh in 1811 actually went down to these southern tribes, especially the Choctaw, the Creek, to try to get them, the powerful tribes down here, to join the Confederacy. He was joined and started this Confederacy and left this person in charge, his brother, which is right next to him. By the way, anybody want to pronounce his name, which is phonetically spelled there? The accent was normally on the second syllable, but, and want me to pronounce it for you? The Prophet. That's what the United States called him, the Prophet. By the way, how do you spell prophet? P-R-O what? P-H-E-T. This is not prophet like money. This is prophet like a religious prophet. Everyone got that? There is a difference in the fun way the English language is done with the PH and the F. Where do we get to the Philippines? PH. Filipinos, F. I don't know. I didn't do it. But he was the religious leader and saying that if we trust our God enough, the Europeans will go away. Color of skin was literally just kind of starting to be used more. Referring to people by the color of skin it would happen in the 17th century or 1700s, but you really see it in the 1800s. That's when you really start seeing it in the kind of the weird way they came up with colors of skin. I gotta repeat this. Before colonization of the New World, the color of skin was not a big deal. It was not used to divide people. In fact, I was just going back over the history of Rome. I'm doing Roman history for Western civilizations. And there were 6 emperors of Rome of African descent. And it would not, just one more thing. It wasn't a big deal at all. It just that's the way it was. But most people think, oh, well, Rome, Europeans. No, it was a very multicultural, no one really thought much about it, empire. Okay, a brutal, horrible empire in a lot of ways. So back to him. He said if you believe him long enough, and to prove it, and he gave him credibility, in 1810, he predicted that the sun would go away. But he would bring it back. He had that power. He had that connection with the gods and bring it back. And what happened? On the very moment he said, the sun disappeared. And everyone was like, ah! And then it came back just as he said. Well, you can make the sun disappear. You got credibility. And people started following him by the thousands to the little place in Indiana, right here along Tippecanoe Creek called Prophetstown. We'll come back to that. How did he make the sun disappear? Careful. Now, how did he do it? He cheated. What did he do? Yeah. Yeah, and he knew it was coming. Because what happened was, 8 years earlier, a number of leaders of the various tribes here were brought to Philadelphia, basically so the United States could show off how advanced the U.S. was. So, sign away your land. Look how advanced we are. And they gave him an almanac that had the exact date and time of the solar eclipse coming into effect. He kept it secure and waited, and waited, and waited. The problem is, once you make the sun disappear, your fans want more. Give us more! And he had to come up with more stuff. So he said things like, if you believe hard and long enough, you'll become invisible. Bullets will bounce off you. And everyone's like, yes, tell us more. The problem is, they're probably not going to become invisible. You see a problem down the road with this. So with that, by the way, one-eyed, going to be a lot of one-eyed people of the various tribes because they practice with bow and arrows. Not the actual arrow tip, but just shooting them. I think you understand what happened. Now, I got to be clear about this one. I was a youth growing up. I had a little bow and arrow set with a suction cup at the end. We would shoot at each other. Wow. And we didn't even know what the seatbelt was. Moving on. That's actually very true. Now, Tecumseh, though, was feared. The United States feared Tecumseh. He was a threat to the United States. Yeah. No, he was the prophet. Tenskwatch. He was a prophet. He's a more pragmatic leader. But they're brothers. Tecumseh, they're scared. In fact, well into the 20th century, little children growing up here would be told, don't, if you don't go to sleep right now, Tecumseh will come and get you. Which, really? That's going to make you sleep? Or the boogeyman is going to be what? Anyways, because Tecumseh was the real deal. And because he was so feared and respected by the United States, this shows you the way that kind of prejudice and the differences between race would be used. We've seen this in other cultures too. Notice that picture I used? Do they look the same? Yeah. What? The leaf? It's haunted. It's Halloween coming up. But, do they look alike? This is drawn after the fact. But if he's so smart and so respected, he must have some European descent. Doesn't he look like a little bit of European kind of features? This will be done a lot. You'll see this a lot in history. That's closer to what he looked like watercolor. By the way, Tecumseh loved wearing British military uniforms. He loved the tunics. We know all these talks about him. That's great. But, for example, in 1853, a U.S. naval squadron forced their way into a still medieval Japan under a guy named Matthew Perry. We'll get to that obviously down the road. But Perry's going to become very famous in Japan for forcing them to modernize. So Perry's going to be in textbooks, and pictures they draw of Perry in Japanese textbooks give him Japanese features. It's the same kind of thing. We respect him, he must be closer to us, not different. So, they begin to organize. But we're going to jump right here. The territorial governor of Indiana Territory was William Henry Harrison. Harrison, a very wealthy patrician family from Virginia. And I always think that noses are hard to draw, but he must have had that kind of a big nose, so he must have been like us. And he is down here in southern Indiana. He's got about 1,000 regular troops and militia, but the big thing he has is cannon. Cannon with, what do we call it? We shoot a bunch of cannonballs instead of one. Yeah, grape shot. And that's decisive. That's one thing that Tecumseh does not have. Cannon. He has weapons. By the way, who's Tecumseh trading the weapons? Who's Tecumseh trading with to get the weapons? The British. So, Tecumseh's down here. He's down in what is now Alabama. The prophet's up here. The prophet's up. Tecumseh says, don't do anything rash, because he knows his brothers are a little bit rash. And only the most radicalized members of the Confederacy from all kinds of different tribes were right here in Prophetstown. Harrison, knowing Tecumseh was gone, in October, marched north and encamped across Tippecanoe Creek from Prophetstown and just dug in. He dug in a little fortified little line, basically kind of like this four-sided kind of triangular shape or whatever you want to call it, and dug in and waited and taunted those in Prophetstown. And for almost a week, every night, the most radicalized members of the Confederacy were going to the prophet. I'm not going to try to pronounce his name. You please let us attack. You said we were bulletproof. Let's attack. And finally, on the 7th, they attacked. And it was almost suicidal charges. Here's the prophet supposed to be right here. Probably wasn't going like this. And they show U.S. forces with a bayonet charge. No, they were dug in trenches, waiting. And a couple times it was close. A couple times. I guess in this section right here, they almost broke through. Who knows how things would have been different. But cannon with grape shot just cut him down. Just cut him down in waves. And by the end of the day, Harrison's line held. And this is what we got to get. A decisive victory for the United States. Probably the biggest victory along the frontier in history. This would change everything. 29 years later, William Henry Harrison would run for president, and using a new thing called the campaign slogan, his slogan would be Tippecanoe and Tyler too. Tyler was his vice president. 29 years later, just the word Tippecanoe was like, oh yes, that was the great victory for the United States. A great victory for a new way the U.S. started calling itself America after this battle. So, the Indian threat. Now, you have to put it in quotes because the Indian threat to American expansion was gone, U.S. expansion. After this, there's no real chance. Now, they didn't know it at the time, but looking back, there was no real chance the various tribes could unify. It's over. And so think about the various battles that happened in Montana, most famously right here, the Battle of Little Bighorn. One of the most famous battles along the frontier in American history. It was already part of a slow and horrific last stand for the various tribes. It's Tippecanoe. Next, American citizens of the United States started to refer to themselves as Americans. They're no longer Virginians or New Yorkers. They're Americans. Because before that, in 1800, if you would have said, if you're from Virginia or Pennsylvania, and you would have said, look, there's Americans, people would have thought you would have been talking about somebody who was a Miami or a Shawnee or somebody. Those were the Americans. After this, it became normal. We're the United States and we're Americans. That's a big deal. That's basically saying this is our continent. It's ours. We own it. Yes.
Absolutely. So, what cost why winning that battle?
It just destroyed the Confederacy. And since Tecumseh, even though Tecumseh wasn't there, the Confederacy broke apart. And so Tecumseh was so feared, and the Confederacy broke apart because of that battle. It was like this great relief. You know, we won this huge battle. This is our territory. And lastly, who did we blame? The Brits. The British were to blame. And this is going to directly lead to, oh, here's a picture showing the fear of the British. And it's a really horrible one from 1811. In trying to blame American Indian attacks and their scalping and giving the scalps for money to the British, implying that the only reason American Indians are fighting are because the British are giving them money, inciting them, which of course not. Did the British pay? This is very heavily debated, maybe. But the British were helping partially kind of dampen the power of the United States, but the American Indians were trying to defend their land. And that leads directly to the War of 1812. And the War of 1812 is going to be pushed by a group of brand new congressmen, all members of the House, all elected in 1810, called the War Hawks. Have you ever heard the term hawk meaning war in the United States? That comes from that. What bird means peace? Dove, yeah. Grundy, you don't need to know much. He would get ill, and so his career was very much a shooting star. But Henry Clay is going to be one of the most important politicians in American history. We will talk a lot about Henry Clay. And then this guy. And so with that, moving on. We know who that guy is. You know? John C. Calhoun. Now, I know what you're thinking. Why would we yell this terrible man? Why not? And look at that here. Halloween is coming. Look at that finger. That's like 7 joints. Want to see one more picture of Calhoun? Now, a couple of things about this picture for the development. First off, look into his eyes. Look into his eyes. No matter where you're sitting, he's staring. Next. You see it? You see it? Neck hair. Neck hair. If anybody grows neck hair, you'll get 5 contests. Now, don't tell me you might say that's unfair. That's not my problem. I'm not responsible for all neck hair. I have no idea what it is in the mouth. We'll figure it out. I'm not going to sit there. What if I got something else? Yes, listen.
Okay, I guess, yeah. But well, that was here.
Okay, you're good call. And you got a nice little hint today. Yes.
Eli, you want the snake one? Yeah.
I'm still lost on those months, and I'm not.
Just go ahead. I'm just going. I don't know why I did
Yeah.
that.
Like, so
You know, the very good chance I was walking around, I just said,
when would the,
as soon as possible, Friday or Monday. Okay. The quicker the possible, the quicker it is, the sooner I can get it ready. Yes. Different Harrison. That when it was done, it was Benjamin was president. And by the way, Benjamin Harrison was president. That's William Henry Harrison was there.
This temperature, I'm not a fan.
And so it is kind of indirectly related after William Henry Harrison too. Good call. I should have said that. Thank you for reminding me. You know, they built the fort during the presidency of Benjamin Harrison. But
Yeah, he
is staring about the I'll look.
Yeah, he just needs those squishy eyes. Was that you like 20 years ago?
Yeah, that was me.
I kind of see it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm getting how this tiger stays on. Is it glue?
Huh?
Is this tiger glued onto there?
Oh, it's fake.
What are we kidding? Don't take the tiger down. It's got.
You're right, how did this?
Did we get to yell grab me?
Yes.
Did we get to this? Oh, the bell. Oh no, they started announcements for 5 minutes. Oh, that irritated me. I literally had like a few things wanted to get through, so I was caught up with every other class, and then the announcements come on. I don't know if you noticed, I was very early. I walked down the hall.